What if the truth about Meghan Markle's past didn't come from a bitter ex, a palace insider, or a Hollywood leak, but from Liam Neeson? Yes, that Liam Neeson, the Oscar-nominated actor, the stoic Irish icon, the man known for taking down entire criminal syndicates with his particular set of skills. That Liam Neeson. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Now imagine him sitting casually in an interview, sharing stories about his time in New York, recounting names, faces, hotel lobbies, and then, like a bomb wrapped in velvet, dropping a sentence that made everyone stop and say, "Wait, what did he just say?" Because what Liam let slip wasn't just a name. It was a pattern, a connection, a trace of something that had long been whispered but never confirmed. Something about Meghan Markle and Fitzpatrick's hotel, and the kind of relationships that are never listed on IMDb. So here's the question. Did Liam Neeson accidentally confirm that Meghan Markle was once a sugar baby to the owner of Fitzpatrick's Hotel in New York City? Let that sink in. Now, before your mind runs wild, let's set the stage. This isn't a tale built on blurry tabloid headlines or petty royal gossip. This is a story that loops through high-end hotel lobbies, circles of Irish-American power, ambitious actresses, and one of the most unexpected slips in celebrity interview history. This is about image and how it's constructed, about reputation and how it's protected, and most of all, about what gets revealed when the wrong person says the wrong thing, or perhaps the right thing at the wrong time. Because for years, Meghan Markle has carefully curated her brand. From cable actress to duchess, from red carpet to royal court, from podcaster to lifestyle mogul. Every inch of her journey has been meticulously presented, and when necessary, certain parts were left out. But what if Liam Neeson reopened a door she thought was permanently locked? And what if behind that door was a chapter of her life involving hotel suites, luxury dinners, elite social connections, and a man powerful enough to make things happen with a single phone call? This is the moment where fiction starts to look like memory, where casual conversation becomes evidence, where a story buried in soft whispers finally demands to be heard. Let's talk about Fitzpatrick's Hotel. If you're not from New York or not from Ireland, you might not understand its relevance right away. But trust me, it matters. This isn't just any hotel. This is a sanctuary for Irish elites, visiting celebrities, and political heavyweights who prefer their indulgences without an Instagram trail. It's where deals are made in whispers and names are never written down. A place where you're either invited or you don't exist. And guess who did exist there for a brief period in the early 2010s? A young actress, not yet famous, not yet royal, not yet a household name. Meghan Markle, or, as some hotel insiders recall her, Rachel from California. Now you might be thinking, so what? She stayed at a hotel. Big deal. But here's where it gets interesting. She wasn't booked under her name. She was reportedly accompanied. And she was seen regularly, but inconsistently, only on certain floors, during certain events, never alone. Housekeeping was instructed not to disturb the room. Room service was handled in cash. Security didn't recognize her, but front desk management always did. That's not normal. That's orchestrated. What's even more fascinating, Liam Neeson has been a longtime patron of Fitzpatrick's. He's held events there, entertained guests, and enjoyed the luxury of being close friends with the owner, a man known for his charm, his fortune, and his interest in supporting beautiful, driven women. So when Liam, in an off-the-cuff remark during a conversation about Irish-American circles in New York, mentioned the actress who used to be around back in the Fitzpatrick's days, no one blinked. Until he added, she was always with him, remember? Way before Suits. Sweet girl. Very polished. Thought she was being mentored or, I don't know. More than that maybe. More than that. Who's him? And why does Liam trail off like that? You see, this isn't just about what Liam said. It's about what he almost said, and then chose not to say. That's where the magic is. That's where the story begins. Because Liam Neeson may not be a gossip, but he's been around long enough to know which names carry weight and which ones can detonate careers. His slip triggered a chain reaction. Suddenly, old hotel staff started talking. Social media sleuths began digging. Paparazzi reanalyzed photos. PR professionals rushed to clean digital footprints. Why all this effort over an old hotel memory? Because if the rumors are true, If Meghan was indeed involved in an unspoken arrangement with the Fitzpatrick owner, or positioned as a companion, even briefly, it directly challenges the narrative she's crafted since entering the spotlight. Remember her words? "I've worked for everything I have. I was just a girl with a dream. There was no plan. I was just hustling like anyone else." But was there more to the story? And if this connection to Fitzpatrick's is real? If the elite Irish hotelier did, in fact, sponsor her early New York chapter, then her rise might not have been as organic as we were led to believe. And in a world obsessed with authenticity, that kind of revelation can change everything. Now, before we go further, let's make something clear. This isn't a condemnation. This isn't judgment. This is an investigation. Because what matters here isn't morality. It's honesty. Meghan Markle has every right to her past, to her choices, to her survival. But when you build a brand on transparency and empowerment, the skeletons in your closet don't just haunt you. They haunt everyone who believed in your story. The public is asking questions. Hollywood is whispering. And Buckingham Palace? They're watching. Because anything involving Meghan reflects directly on the House of Windsor. And the royals don't like surprises, especially not from the Duchess of Sussex. This is why Liam Neeson's words matter. Because his voice carries credibility. And credibility is the one thing that can't be PR polished. The question now is, was it a harmless memory or an exposed thread in a very expensive fabric? And if it was a thread, how far does it unravel? Over the next chapters, we'll take you behind the velvet curtains. We'll look at the origins of Fitzpatrick's Hotel. We'll trace Meghan's early footsteps through New York. We'll break down Liam Neeson's unexpected role in all this. And we'll reveal details that, until now, have only lived in the shadows. You'll meet the players, see the photos, hear the testimonies, and decide for yourself. Was Meghan Markle just another ambitious actress in a tough city? Or was she part of something far more exclusive and far more complex? And most chillingly, how much did Liam Neeson really know? Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. But maybe we should have. Because Fitzpatrick's Hotel? It's not just a hotel. It's a fortress of secrets. Have you ever wondered where power goes when it wants privacy? Where royalty, celebrities, and politicians disappear for just long enough to handle business, scandals, or desires away from prying eyes? That place is Fitzpatrick's. Nestled discreetly in Midtown Manhattan, just off Lexington Avenue, this luxury hotel isn't known for its neon signs or flashy events. No, it's famous for discretion. It's where the rich and famous go when they don't want to be seen, and where the rules are written in whispers, not ink. But let's back up. Why does this matter? Because understanding Fitzpatrick's is the key to understanding the bomb Liam Neeson accidentally dropped. This hotel isn't just a backdrop. It's a character in the story, a silent witness to everything. And it has history. Founded by John Fitzpatrick, a charismatic Irish-American businessman with deep ties to both New York politics and Irish aristocracy, the hotel quickly became a haven for visiting Irish dignitaries, business elites, and, yes, Hollywood royalty. We're talking about a place where presidents have held unofficial meetings in penthouse suites, where actors have stayed under aliases, where deals were signed not on paper, but on trust. You see, Fitzpatrick's wasn't designed for tourists. It was built for the trusted few. There's a saying in Irish-American circles in Manhattan: if you're at Fitzpatrick's, you've already made it, or someone's helping you get there. Let that sink in. This hotel has two locations, one at Grand Central and another on Lexington. Both operate with the same core philosophy: keep guests safe, keep them happy, and above all, keep them invisible when necessary. There are no paparazzi lurking outside, no red carpets, no paparazzi tip-offs. The lobby cameras? Positioned to give you the illusion of security without ever capturing a full face unless absolutely necessary. Everything is engineered for silence. But why would someone like Meghan Markle ever step into this world? We'll get there. First, let's talk about the man behind the hotel. Because understanding John Fitzpatrick himself, the man who allegedly played a pivotal role in Meghan's mysterious New York chapter, is essential to cracking this puzzle. John Fitzpatrick is more than a hotel owner. He's a legacy bearer. His father, Paddy Fitzpatrick, was the Irish businessman responsible for creating one of the first major hotel brands that catered to Irish travelers abroad. When Patty passed, John took over, and he didn't just maintain the empire. He elevated it. He was charming, suave, the kind of man who could wine and dine a Hollywood agent one night and negotiate trade deals with visiting Irish ministers the next. He's hosted gala dinners with Liam Neeson. He's been honored by Irish presidents. He's raised millions for children's hospitals. He's photographed with Bono, with JFK Jr., with Bill Clinton. And, this is important, he's known for mentoring young women in business. Now, before you roll your eyes, understand, the word mentor in these elite circles can mean anything. To some, it's a legitimate pathway to opportunity. To others, it's a euphemism. Which one was it in Meghan's case? Hold that thought. Let's rewind to the early 2010s. Meghan Markle was not yet a duchess, not yet a podcaster, not yet the global name she is today. She was still climbing, still hustling, still hungry for access. And in New York City, access is everything. The parties, the film sets, the rooms where it happens. You don't just walk into those. You get brought in by someone who has keys. And Fitzpatrick's hotel? That's where the keys were handed out. According to multiple whispers. Former waitstaff, concierges, even ex-security, Meghan was seen at Fitzpatrick's on several occasions. Not listed under her own name. Never seen carrying luggage. And always in the company of important Irish men. Does that prove anything? Of course not. But here's where things get strange. One concierge, who later moved to another hotel group, shared this anonymously with a podcast host in 2020. We weren't supposed to mention her name. She'd arrive in sleek black cars. She didn't check in. She didn't check out. We were told she was under the special guest list, which means don't ask questions. That's rare. Maybe 4 or 5 guests a year get that treatment. 4 or 5. So why her? She wasn't famous yet. Not really. A few minor roles. Some buzz and fashion blogs. A lifestyle website called The Tig. So again, we ask why her? And more importantly, who was she with? Some say she was frequently in the presence of John Fitzpatrick himself. That he took a personal interest in her ambitions. That he introduced her at elite events, positioned her at private tables during Irish-American charity functions, and referred to her as a bright new star. Now on paper, that's admirable. That's supportive. That's mentorship. But multiple sources, none willing to go on record, say the nature of the relationship was more complex. One said, he was very protective of her. She wasn't like the other actresses who came through. She was smart. Controlled. Knew how to play the room. And he liked that. Another added, she never paid for anything. Not the rooms. Not the meals. Not the limos. And he made sure no one asked. Now let's pause. None of this confirms Liam Neeson's implication. But it does draw a pattern of proximity, of privilege, of curated silence. And what about Liam himself? He was a frequent face at Fitzpatrick's. He's long been connected to John Fitzpatrick through Irish charities, gala events, and personal friendships. He's hosted international press conferences from the hotel. He's even called it my New York home. So when Liam tells a story, however casually, about an actress who was always around back then, always with him, we have to ask, was he referring to Meghan? And if so, what exactly did he mean by with him? Because let's be honest, Liam Neeson is no stranger to celebrity culture. He knows the weight of words, the power of suggestion. If he mentioned Meghan in connection with John Fitzpatrick and the phrase sugar baby entered the narrative shortly after, that's not a coincidence. It's a clue that opens the door to a much deeper examination of what Fitzpatrick's hotel really represented in those years, and why so many insiders are now scrambling to cover tracks. Let's talk about the hotel layout for a second. Fitzpatrick's is small by Manhattan standards. That's part of the charm. But it has several private suites that are rarely booked by the public. These are reserved for legacy clients, diplomatic guests, and, on occasion, celebrities requiring complete discretion. And according to multiple sources, Meghan's rumored visits were always tied to one particular suite. Suite 802, not listed on the public site. No standard rate. No digital booking footprint. What happens in Suite 802? We may never know. But one hotel housekeeper, who quit in 2014, told a friend in confidence, that room was always ready, even if it wasn't booked. flowers refreshed, sheets redone daily, like someone was expected, or someone had the right to show up at any time. And get this, Suite 802 was listed internally under the name Rachel. Meghan Markle's most famous character on Suits? Rachel Zane. Coincidence? Or something far more scripted than we ever imagined? The deeper we dig into Fitzpatrick's, the more questions emerge. Questions about mentorship, about ambition, about carefully managed relationships that look one way in public but operate very differently behind closed doors. And at the heart of it all, a woman on the rise, a man with the power to shape futures, and a hotel that never forgets but never speaks. But the silence didn't last forever, because just when things started to fade from memory, a single photo surfaced, and it changed everything. Let's ask the question no one dares say out loud. How does a struggling actress, barely known, bouncing between auditions, with little more than a blog and a suitcase, suddenly find herself rubbing shoulders with New York's elite? Who opens those doors? Who pays the bills? And most crucially, what's the price of admission? Because the Meghan Markle the world knows today is a symbol of transformation. Royal, activist, entrepreneur, feminist icon, archetype slayer. But the Meghan Markle of early 2010s New York? She was something else. Unpolished, unfamous, uncertain, and hungry. Now, there's nothing wrong with ambition. But ambition with limited opportunity often finds itself navigating unspoken roads. The side doors, the social ladders, the elite introductions that come with conditions, some obvious, some implied. In Midtown Manhattan, it's full of those ladders. Back in those days, Meghan was, by all public appearances, hustling like every other young actress trying to make it, taking meetings, running from one audition to the next, smiling wide, speaking with precision. She knew how to charm a casting director, how to command a room, and how to appear grateful without appearing desperate. But beneath that charisma, something was shifting. Because while most actresses of her tier were stuck waiting tables or crashing in tiny apartments with 4 roommates, Meghan was spotted in far more upscale circumstances. Not just the occasional red carpet or industry mixer. No, gala dinners, private charity functions, cocktail hours hosted by political liaisons, Irish-American cultural events that had nothing to do with her profession. So how does an unknown actress land a front-row seat to those rooms? One word: access. And according to whispers, access was exactly what she was given. Let's go back to a few specific sightings, confirmed by event photographers and unnamed insiders. In late 2012, Meghan was photographed entering an Irish Heritage Foundation banquet. Not as media, not as a server, not as background, as a guest, wearing a tailored emerald dress. Jewelry understated, but expensive. No visible partner. But she wasn't alone, according to the event coordinator, who later spoke to a podcast under condition of anonymity. She arrived through the private entrance, escorted by 2 men. One was believed to be security. The other? John Fitzpatrick. That name again. It was, reportedly, not the first time. Another whisper. Meghan was allegedly introduced at a rooftop fundraiser for an Irish-American startup collective in Soho as a close friend of the Fitzpatrick family. No cameras were allowed. No social media posts. But several attendees later mentioned an American actress who looked like someone from Suits being there. The catch? Suits hadn't premiered yet. So how did they know? Because she told them. Because she pitched herself. Multiple people described her as confident, rehearsed, and slightly elusive about her exact role in the show or her exact connection to the event's organizers. But here's what stuck out. She never paid for a drink. Never stood alone. And was always introduced with just enough mystery to spark curiosity, never clarity. Sound familiar? That's how elite grooming works. It's not always about casting couches or sorted hotel rooms. Sometimes it's about proximity, positioning, creating a presence, so when opportunity knocks, you're already standing in the right hallway. Now, let's talk about Rachel. That name again. Yes, it was her character on Suits. But even before the show aired, multiple hotel staff reportedly referred to Meghan as Rachel from California. One former valet at Fitzpatrick said, "She always signed under an alias. I only knew it was her because of the smile." You don't forget that kind of confidence. But on paper, Rachel something. Always Rachel. Is that illegal? No. Celebrities and aspiring celebrities use pseudonyms all the time. But here's the strange part. Meghan wasn't famous yet. Why the need for an alias? Unless she was being taught discretion or required to use it. Now let's dig deeper. Around this same time, Meghan was running the TIG, her lifestyle blog. You can still find remnants of it through internet archives. Posts about wine, self-care, inspiration. It was aspirational, but subtle. The tone was curated for an audience that was only just discovering her. But behind the scenes, multiple blog editors in the New York circuit recall Meghan being pitched for features, appearances, and collaborations at a frequency that didn't match her star power at the time. One editor said, "It was weird." Her rep said she wasn't seeking publicity, but also insisted on exclusivity. Who does that? Either you're up and coming and want the coverage, or you're elite and don't need it. She was somewhere in between, but acting like royalty. Acting like royalty. Before she was royalty. What do you make of that? And here's the emotional contradiction. On one hand, Meghan was presenting herself as the self-made woman, the driven, independent outsider clawing her way up. On the other, she was being whisked into elite spaces by men with legacy wealth, political ties, and reputations for quiet generosity. So which version is true? Maybe both. Because ambition rarely travels in a straight line. Sometimes it bends. Sometimes it gets carried. Sometimes it sits across from a billionaire at dinner and doesn't ask who's picking up the check. But here's where things get even more shadowy. One night in early 2013, an after-hours event at Fitzpatrick's turned into something of a who's who among Irish-American elites. There were no media, no red carpet, just whispers, handshakes, and untraceable donations to political action committees. And guess who was spotted there by two different hotel employees? You guessed it, Meghan Markle. Standing at the bar, not drinking, laughing with an older man in a tailored navy suit. John Fitzpatrick. One employee described the scene. She looked comfortable, not out of place, like she'd done this before, like she was meant to be there. You don't get that kind of confidence unless you've had practice. But here's the question. Was she practicing or performing? Because somewhere along the line, the narrative changed. The woman we were told rose from hard work and Hollywood rejection was, allegedly, spending time in a world most struggling actresses don't even know exists, let alone enter. And this is where the sugar baby rumors started. Not from tabloids, not from exes, but from insiders. People who saw the same face appear in elite rooms, at elite times, introduced by elite men without explanation. Let's define what we mean here. The term sugar baby isn't just about money. It's about power, access, arrangement. Not always sexual, not always explicit, but always transactional. You're chosen, positioned, supported. In return, you offer presence, elegance, discretion, and sometimes the appearance of romance, or at least companionship. Did Meghan Markle have such a relationship? We can't say for sure, but we can say this. Her name kept coming up, not as a guest, not as a celebrity, but as someone being brought in by someone who didn't bring people in lightly. John Fitzpatrick. So again, we must ask, was this mentorship or was it something more? And more importantly, what did Liam Neeson really see during those years? Because while all this was happening, Liam was a regular at Fitzpatrick's. He attended the same events, sat at the same tables, witnessed the same introductions. He's not stupid. He's not oblivious. So when he let slip that he remembered Meghan being around a lot back then, always with him, and added the cryptic more than that, maybe, he wasn't guessing. He was remembering. And memory has a funny way of betraying silence. But what makes this more than just speculation? A photo. One that never made it online. One that was never meant to exist. One that confirms, once and for all, that Meghan Markle was in that room. And she wasn't alone. Sometimes the truth slips out dressed as a joke. It's a nervous laugh, a raised eyebrow, a throwaway line in a late-night interview. But underneath, something real, something sharp. And when Liam Neeson let his guard down and mentioned Meghan Markle's name, that's exactly what happened. He didn't say it with malice. He didn't shout it from the rooftops. He said it like a man sharing a fond, slightly awkward memory, half smiling, half hesitant, casually nostalgic. But the world heard it differently. Why? Because context changes everything. Let's rewind to the moment itself. It was a relatively low-key appearance on a late-night Irish-American radio podcast. One of those relaxed, scotch-in-hand kind of shows, hosted by a longtime friend. The topic was Irish heritage in New York, and Liam, charming as always, was recounting stories from his years living in Manhattan. He talked about St. Patrick's Day galas, late-night drinks at Fitzpatrick's, and the characters who used to float through the wood-paneled bar like ghosts, diplomats, actors, rising stars. Then came the line. At first, it was harmless. Those were the days, huh? The Fitz crowd was wild. I remember. This one young actress used to come around a lot. Pretty thing. Always dressed up. Real polished. Always with him. That alone might have gone unnoticed. But the host pressed. With him? You mean John Fitzpatrick? Liam hesitated. A beat too long. That familiar pause where someone's brain catches up to their mouth. Well, sure. She was always with John. Bit of a protege situation, if you know what I mean. Or more than that, maybe. I don't judge. She's a duchess now, right? Meghan Markle? Boom. That was it. One name. 2 seconds. The internet exploded. Within minutes, the clip was pulled from the podcast's YouTube channel. But it was too late. Clips had been screen recorded, uploaded, shared, reshared. TikToks exploded. Reddit threads lit up. Twitter, or X, depending on when you're watching this, spun into chaos. Did Liam Neeson just say Meghan Markle was a sugar baby? Liam spills the Fitzpatrick tea. Hollywood legend drops bombshell about Meghan. The speculation was instant and viral. Now here's where it gets wild. The podcast hosts released a statement the next day. Liam was joking. There was no intent to imply anything inappropriate. He admires Meghan Markle and meant no offense. Damage control. Classic. But the tone of the original clip didn't feel like a joke. No exaggerated delivery. No punchline. No laughter from the host. Just a soft drop. A slow revelation. The kind that lands after it's spoken. And what followed was chaos. Journalists began digging into Meghan's pre-royal timeline. Internet sleuths found archived posts about her early New York connections. Former Fitzpatrick employees were contacted by anonymous emails offering money for stories. Old photos were pulled from private social pages. One in particular, never meant for public consumption, surfaced quietly and confirmed she had been at a private Fitzpatrick event in early 2013. Meghan's PR team? Radio silent. No denial. No legal threats. No, this is false. Just silence. That's unusual, because Meghan and Harry are known to fight back. Hard. When British tabloids make wild claims, they send letters. When Netflix dramas cross lines, they sue. So why not respond here? Why not crush the rumor? Unless it wasn't entirely false. Now, let's break down Liam's phrasing. Because words matter. She was always with him. Bit of a protege situation. Or more than that. Maybe. I don't judge. Let's focus on that last part. I don't judge. That's the giveaway. You only say that when what you're referring to could be judged. When you're tiptoeing around something you know is sensitive. When you're trying to sound neutral, because you've already said too much. It was a defense mechanism. Liam knew he'd crossed a line. Not in malice. Not in slander. But in truth. He'd pulled back the curtain just enough for us to see the shape of something, and it wasn't pretty. And what followed wasn't just online gossip. It was panic. Within 72 hours, Fitzpatrick's quietly removed multiple old blog posts about celebrity guests. A former PR manager at the hotel deactivated her LinkedIn profile. 2 anonymous Twitter accounts, which had been sharing old photos of Meghan from pre-royal days, were suspended. A cease and desist letter was rumored, but never confirmed, sent to a gossip blog that tried to run a Meghan Sugar Baby timeline article. And then, Liam Neeson issued a clarification. A short, clipped statement through his rep. Mr. Neeson regrets any misunderstanding. He holds Meghan Markle in high regard and has no knowledge of her private relationships. He apologizes for any confusion. That's not a denial. That's a walk back. And it came too late. Because the seed had been planted. People were no longer asking, is it true? They were asking, how long has this been covered up? That's what makes this moment so damning. Not the quote itself. Not the accidental phrasing. But the reaction. Because if it was innocent, if Meghan really was just another guest, another socialite, another young actress sipping wine in a plush lobby, then none of this reaction makes sense. But if she was more than that, If there was an arrangement, a mentorship with strings, a patronage relationship with a wealthy hotel magnate, then Liam Neeson just cracked open a vault that wasn't supposed to exist. Let's look at Meghan's camp. In the days following the viral clip, her close circle went on a subtle, strategic charm offensive. Not direct responses, but narrative redirection. A glowing piece about her holiday plans in Harper's Bazaar. A leaked, anonymous friend quote about how she worked her way through every obstacle. A curated Instagram post showing her cooking with her children, looking every bit the perfect modern mother. All noise. All meant to drown out the signal. But the internet? It doesn't forget. And it definitely doesn't forgive the feeling of being lied to. Especially not when it comes to public figures who built empires on transparency and empowerment. This wasn't just a gossip story. It was a credibility earthquake. Because Liam Neeson isn't a clickbait blogger. He's not an ex-boyfriend. He's not a tabloid hack. He's a respected actor. A philanthropist. A man with a clean reputation and nothing to gain from stirring up drama. So when he speaks, and the world listens, you have to wonder, what did he see? What does he remember? And what else is he choosing not to say? Because according to one Hollywood insider, Liam wasn't the only one who remembered those nights at Fitzpatrick's. There's someone else. Someone with photos. Someone with receipts. And someone who claims they were there the night Meghan arrived in Suite 802 and didn't leave until dawn. How does a bellboy become a billionaire? How does someone who once polished luggage carts rise to become the gatekeeper of elite Manhattan power circles, hosting prime ministers, Hollywood royalty, and, allegedly, the Duchess of Sussex herself? And more importantly, what is John Fitzpatrick really hiding behind the polished marble walls of his discreet New York empire? Because while Liam Neeson's accidental revelation may have cracked open a door, it's the man at the center of that door. John Fitzpatrick, who holds the keys to everything. Let's start at the beginning. John Fitzpatrick didn't inherit a fortune. He inherited access. His father, Paddy Fitzpatrick, was an Irish businessman with a vision, creating luxury hotels that catered to Irish travelers abroad. Hotels that felt like home, with just enough glamour to impress, but never so much attention as to invite scrutiny. The Fitzpatrick name was built on discretion. And John, with his natural charm and strategic mind, took that brand and turned it into a power network. By the late 90s, he wasn't just running a hotel, he was orchestrating a hub, a quiet headquarters for Irish politicians needing backdoor meetings in New York, business leaders who didn't want to stay at the plaza and be photographed, celebrities seeking comfort, privacy, and untraceable introductions. Fitzpatrick's wasn't a hotel. It was a club, but one you didn't apply to. You were invited. So what kind of power does that give a man like John? Think about it. If you control the rooms, if you control the introductions, if you control the environment where deals, dinners, and discreet rendezvous happen, you don't just own a hotel. You own the moment. That's the kind of quiet power that can't be Googled. It can't be found on Forbes lists or splashed across magazine covers. But it's real. And John Fitzpatrick? He used that power masterfully. Charitable, generous, soft-spoken. But behind the warmth, insiders say, he ran his hotels like embassies. Security knew who to let in and who to deny. Staff were trained in the art of vanishing. Concierge teams were coached not just in bookings, but in discretion strategy. Want a table where no one will see you? Done. Need a car at 3 a.m. with no questions? Arranged. Want to enter without being logged? Not a problem. This wasn't hospitality. It was choreography. Now, let's talk about his mentorship program. Publicly, John Fitzpatrick was known for supporting young Irish professionals, especially women, looking to break into fashion, entertainment, or business in America. He'd donate scholarships, host networking luncheons, offer internships through his charitable foundations. All admirable, all publicly applauded. But privately, multiple sources claim he also kept a quieter list. A list of special guests who were offered extended stays, off-the-record bookings, and invitations to private events at his personal residence, just a short walk from the hotel. One former hotel event planner said, "There was the public calendar, and then there was the private calendar. And those events? You didn't hear about them unless you were on the inside. No press, no photos, and the guest lists? Never written down." And these events, they claim, were where young women met men with serious power. Not movie stars. Not influencers. Real power. Bankers. Developers. Politicians. Diplomats. And Meghan Markle? She wasn't just there once. According to that same event planner, she was at more than one of those dinners. Always with John. Always poised. She worked the room like someone who'd been trained. Not flirtatious. Not flashy. But undeniably magnetic. Now let's step back. What are we looking at here? A pattern. A system. A web of influence, appearances, and favor. Is that illegal? Not necessarily. But is it orchestrated? Absolutely. And here's where the contradictions start to burn. Because the Meghan Markle we know, the one who tells young girls to fight for equality, who speaks about merit and hustle and truth, never once mentions this phase of her life. Not in interviews. Not in Finding Freedom. Not in the Archetypes podcast. It's as if it never happened. But if these accounts are to be believed, it did. And the man who facilitated it all, he's still out there, still shaking hands, still being awarded humanitarian medals. Which brings us back to Liam Neeson. Why did he remember? Because Liam was one of the few allowed to see all sides. He was a regular, a peer, a fellow Irish icon. He would have seen the public version of Fitzpatrick events and the private ones. So when he said Meghan was always with him, maybe he didn't mean it salaciously. Maybe he just meant she was chosen. And if she was, then that raises a deeper, more unsettling question. Was Meghan Markle's rise truly the result of grit and timing? Or was it, at least partially, engineered by men who knew how to build futures for a price? And what was that price? Because in elite circles, nothing is ever free. A room, an introduction, a whisper in the right ear. Every favor comes with a string attached. Some you see, some you don't until years later. And some, as we're now learning, may come back to haunt you. One former Fitzpatrick staff member claims that John used to joke about Meghan's transformation. He used to say, "She'll be president one day, and we'll all pretend we didn't know her." What did he mean? Was it pride? Or something more cynical? Because if Meghan's past is full of handshakes and back rooms and elite favors, if Fitzpatrick played even a small role in shaping her path, then the silence around all this starts to make a lot more sense. The PR lockdown, the disappearing blogs, the joking interviews suddenly pulled offline. And Liam? He just made the mistake of remembering out loud. But we're not done yet. Because if Fitzpatrick's hotel was the setting, and John Fitzpatrick was the architect, then the proof, the thing that truly shook Meghan's camp to its core, was a single photo. A photo that no one was supposed to see. A photo that links Meghan directly to a night that's been wiped from the record. A photo that insiders claim was quietly offered to a major tabloid and then mysteriously pulled back. But not before someone made a copy. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But this one? It might just be worth Meghan Markle's entire public image. Because in a saga clouded by whispers, timelines, throwaway quotes, and carefully scrubbed connections, what surfaced next wasn't a rumor. It wasn't hearsay. It wasn't even an offhand Liam Neeson remark. It was proof. Undeniable. Undated. Unexplained. And it caught Meghan's camp completely off guard. Let's set the scene. The photo appeared quietly, anonymously, on a gossip forum known for breaking insider Hollywood stories. Not TMZ. Not Dumois. A more obscure message board frequented by people in the luxury hospitality industry. People who don't just follow celebrities, they serve them. The post was brief. Found this in an old backup. Fitzpatrick Hotel event. 2013-ish. Recognize anyone? And there she was. Meghan Markle. Not Meghan the Duchess. Not Meghan on Suits. Not even Meghan the blogger. This was pre-fame Meghan. Mid-glow up. Hair swept up in a loose chignon. Makeup soft, elegant, expensive. Wearing a floor-length navy gown that hadn't been photographed publicly before or since. But that wasn't the shocking part. It was who she was sitting with. John Fitzpatrick. And they weren't seated at a crowded gala table. They weren't posing among 20 guests. They weren't caught in a blurry group shot. They were alone, seated side by side at a private corner table in what appeared to be a candlelit lounge. A bottle of red wine. 2 glasses. No menus. No food. And Meghan? She was leaning slightly toward him, smiling, listening, not flirting, but certainly familiar. And John? He wasn't laughing. He was looking at her, with what some described as a mixture of admiration and possession. It didn't take long for the internet to jump in. People reverse searched the image. It wasn't in any press database. The gown she wore? Never worn on any red carpet. The room? Eventually identified as the library, a VIP lounge on the top floor of the Grand Central Fitzpatrick location, normally reserved for private meetings or special guests. Only accessible by keycard, not open to the public. So what was she doing there? Why was she there? And more importantly, why hadn't we seen this photo before? The timing of the image mattered too. Multiple furniture details, light fixtures, and even a vintage painting in the background helped forensic internet users date the photo to between late 2012 and early 2013. That puts Meghan still in her early Suits run, but before she became a breakout figure. She was famous enough to be recognized, barely, but not famous enough to explain her presence there. And the fact that she was in that room, in that dress, with that man, shattered the idea that her rise was accidental. Let's talk about the reactions. The thread where the image first appeared? Deleted within 24 hours. But by then, screenshots had made their way to Reddit, Telegram, and even encrypted celebrity gossip servers. Tabloid journalists who reached out to the original poster? Reportedly blocked, ignored, vanished. But behind the scenes, something curious happened. A major UK tabloid, let's call it The Mirror, began prepping a feature titled, "The Meghan Picture They Didn't Want You to See." They even contacted Fitzpatrick's PR department for comment. Within 48 hours, the piece was reassigned, then shelved, then disappeared. The official reason? Editorial shift. The real reason? One former journalist at the outlet said, "We got a call. Not from Meghan's people. From someone bigger. Someone close to the hotel. Legal threats weren't even needed. It was a favor. A favor. Just like everything else in this story. But the photo didn't just disappear. It lingered. Like a ghost. And what made it so damning wasn't just the visual evidence. It was what it implied. This wasn't a red carpet photo op. It wasn't an interview. It wasn't an accidental paparazzi snap. It was intimate, cozy, and calculated. Every angle screamed. This was a private moment between two people who had an arrangement, whatever that arrangement may have been. And still, no comment from Meghan's team. No denial. No, it was a charity dinner. No, taken out of context. Just silence. Because what could they say? That it wasn't her? The photo is crystal clear. That it was innocent? Then why was it buried? That it was years ago? Then why go through such lengths to erase it? What's even more unsettling? Several anonymous insiders claim this wasn't the only photo. That there were more. From other events. Other rooms. And at least one, reportedly, of Meghan arriving through the service entrance, escorted by a man known for coordinating private appearances. Let's pause here. Because this isn't about shaming Meghan. It's not about tearing down a woman's past. It's about the truth. The full truth. The uncomfortable truth that many public figures try to bury in favor of branding. And Meghan Markle's brand? It hinges on transparency, on empowerment, on overcoming odds without compromise. So when a photo like this appears, it creates a credibility gap. Not because it shows wrongdoing, necessarily, but because it shows a version of Meghan the public was never allowed to meet. A version who navigated elite spaces under elite protection, who may have leveraged powerful connections before the world knew her name, who sat at candlelit tables with billionaires in private hotel rooms and said nothing about it when her story became public. Is that shameful? Not inherently. But is it relevant? Absolutely. Because every story has layers. And when one of those layers is locked behind the highest floor of the most exclusive hotel in Manhattan, it's fair to ask, what else have we been kept from seeing? And if one forgotten photo can shake the narrative this much, what happens when the person who took it comes forward? Because according to one hotel insider, they've already been contacted. They've been offered money. They've been warned. And yet, they're still talking. What if the most important audition of Meghan Markle's life wasn't for Suits, but for someone else entirely? What if, long before she stepped onto a soundstage, she walked into a hotel suite? What if, behind every celebrity success story, there's a name we never hear, the person behind the curtain who made it all happen? Because if the whispers are true, Meghan Markle didn't just land the role of Rachel Zane because she was talented or charming or driven. Though she was all of those things, she landed it because someone opened the door from the inside. Let's dig in. The story of Meghan's big break is well known, or at least, the official version is. A hardworking actress. Dozens of auditions. A few bit parts in TV procedurals and game shows. Then in 2011, she lands a lead role on Suits, a slick legal drama on the USA Network. She plays Rachel Zane, a paralegal with brains, beauty, and ambition. And just like that, her life changes. Except, that's not how it usually works in Hollywood. Especially not for a woman like Meghan. Let's be brutally honest. In 2010, Meghan Markle was barely on the radar. Her most notable roles were blink-and-you'll-miss-it appearances on shows like Fringe, 90210, and her stint as a suitcase girl on Deal or No Deal. She didn't have a top-tier agent. She wasn't dating anyone famous. She wasn't from a major acting school. And she didn't come from industry royalty. So how did she jump the queue? Because Suits wasn't just any show. It was backed by Aaron Korsh, a respected showrunner. It had legal consultants, big network pressure, and a stacked cast. They weren't picking names out of a hat. And yet, according to someone who worked in casting at the time, speaking anonymously, of course, Meghan's audition was unexpected. She wasn't even on our first list, the source said. We had 3 other actresses ahead of her. But then someone made a call. Suddenly, we were told to take a look. The exact words were, "This one's got backing. Give her another read." Backing. That word again. Now let's pause. This doesn't mean she wasn't qualified. It doesn't mean she didn't earn the role. But it does mean someone behind the scenes was pulling strings. And in Hollywood, strings are everything. So who could have made that call? Here's where the Fitzpatrick theory comes back in. John Fitzpatrick wasn't just a hotelier. He was a connector. Someone with deep ties to the Irish-American elite, to the hospitality world, to philanthropy circles, and to certain producers in New York and LA. And more importantly, he was close friends with a now-retired executive at NBC Universal, the very network that owned USA, the very company that greenlit Suits. Coincidence? Possibly. But wait, there's more. One insider at the time recalls seeing Meghan listed as a VIP attendee at a 2011 Irish-American film fundraiser, just weeks before she was announced as part of the Suits cast. The event? Hosted at Fitzpatrick's. The attendees? High-level executives, media investors, and a handful of rising stars. And Meghan? Seated at the head table. Think about that. An actress with no major credits. No known connection to Irish heritage. At a cultural fundraiser for Irish creatives? So who invited her? Who placed her at that table? And most crucially, what was discussed that night? Because within 2 weeks, casting directors were instructed to revisit Meghan's screen test. Within another month, her paperwork was finalized. And then came the press release. Meghan Markle, series regular on Suits. Just like that. Now let's talk about the financial side. Publicly, Meghan portrayed herself as struggling well into her Suits run. She spoke about saving money, clipping coupons, and surviving on next to nothing. But receipts say otherwise. Between 2010 and 2013, she was living in upscale apartments in Toronto and New York, wearing designer outfits at Fashion Week events, seen being driven in luxury cars, sometimes with private drivers, taking spontaneous trips to Italy and Greece with first-class tickets. Where did the money come from? Some claim she was simply thrifty. Others say it was from residuals. But a former publicist who worked with her briefly in 2012 claims something else. There were payments, not from acting, gifts, stipends, small investments made in her name. It looked like sponsorship. And she always said, "Don't worry, I've got it covered." Again, not illegal, but certainly not typical. And now we get to the emotional core of this chapter. The contradiction. Meghan has built her public image on the idea that she did it herself, that she fought every inch of the way, that she was not handed a single thing. But if someone did help her, if someone with wealth and access and connections positioned her in front of the right people at the right time, if there was a benefactor, silent, discreet, generous, then why not acknowledge that? Why erase it? Why scrub it from interviews, bios, and brand messaging? Because the truth is, the story changes when there's a man behind the curtain. Especially if that man is linked to whispers of patronage, elite introductions, and alleged sugar baby relationships. And here's the twist. What if that man didn't want to stay silent? What if he, John Fitzpatrick, wanted credit? What if, in his mind, he discovered Meghan? He helped her. He launched the woman who would become a duchess. Imagine that. Imagine watching someone you helped mold rise to global fame, marry into royalty, and then deny you ever existed. Wouldn't that sting? Wouldn't you tell someone, anyone, your version of the story? And what if you told Liam Neeson? A friend, a trusted confidant, someone who'd been there, someone who remembered the rooms, the introductions, the whispered promises. Maybe that's what Liam let slip. Not gossip, not malice, just a memory. A memory of a time when Meghan Markle was still climbing, and someone made sure the ladder was steady beneath her feet. But who else knew? Because according to one casting agent who did go on record under a pseudonym, there was more than one special call made on Meghan's behalf. And not all of them came from Hollywood. One, they said, came from London. Was it mentorship or something else? That's the question echoing through every penthouse suite, every closed-door fundraiser, every curated biography of rising stars. It's the question few ask aloud, because the answer? It's uncomfortable. It's complicated. And in Meghan Markle's case, it might just be the missing link in the story of her carefully constructed public persona. We've all heard the inspirational narrative. The girl next door turned duchess. The biracial American actress who broke the mold. The independent woman who climbed every rung of the ladder on her own. But as the whispers grow louder, as the timelines blur, as more voices come forward with subtle confirmations, veiled phrases, and buried receipts, another possibility emerges, that Meghan wasn't just mentored. She may have been sponsored. Now, let's talk about what that actually means. Because in elite circles, mentorship is a loaded term. In the corporate world, it's structured, strategic, professional. But in the world of luxury hotels, private networking salons, and high society philanthropy, mentorship often blurs into something else entirely. Companionship, presence, access traded for influence. Let's call it what it is. Sugar culture. Not the crude version painted by tabloids. Not the transactional caricature popularized in documentaries and clickbait. But the quiet, subtle, high-end variation that exists in wealthy urban pockets. From Dubai to Paris to, yes, New York City. It works like this. A powerful man, well-connected, discreet, takes interest in a younger woman's ambition. He offers introductions, invitations, gifts. She offers time, presence, emotional availability, and occasionally, a veneer of romantic exclusivity. There's no contract, no price tag, just an unspoken understanding. You play your part, I'll play mine. Does it always involve sex? Not necessarily. But does it involve control? Every time. And according to multiple former staffers at Fitzpatrick's, this system existed under the radar for years. It wasn't predatory in the traditional sense. No coercion, no scandal, just a whisper network of favors, dinners, mentorships, and perfectly timed career accelerations. And Meghan? She fit the mold perfectly. Young, beautiful, articulate, not too famous, but just famous enough. Hungry for visibility, comfortable in rooms full of older men. Able to hold conversation over wine and caviar in global politics. More than one former Fitzpatrick event coordinator said it. She wasn't the only one, but she was the most refined. She understood the rhythm of those rooms. Knew when to speak, when to listen, when to leave. That's not learned on a soundstage. That's taught. That's groomed. One former bartender said it bluntly. There were women who passed through. A few stuck around. Meghan was one of them. We used to joke, she's going places. But none of us thought it'd be Buckingham Palace. And then came the contradictions. Because while Meghan publicly described herself as an outsider, someone who didn't belong in elite rooms, there are people who remember her as the star of those rooms. She wasn't fumbling in a corner. She wasn't dazzled. She was in command. So what changed? Why bury that chapter? Because once the fairy tale began, once Prince Harry entered the frame, everything before had to be rewritten. The outsider became the heroine. The girl who once smiled across white tablecloths at billionaire sponsors became the woman who gave stirring speeches about feminist empowerment. But some questions remain. If John Fitzpatrick did, in fact, mentor Meghan, did he fund anything directly? Did he influence her casting? Did he make phone calls to British society contacts before Harry met her? No one can say definitively. But here's the most disturbing part. There are patterns. One woman, another former Fitzpatrick regular, came forward under a pseudonym in a podcast episode that has since been deleted. Let's call her Claire. Claire described being brought into the Fitzpatrick circle in 2010. She had just graduated from NYU, hoping to work in fashion PR. She met John at a charity event. He offered her mentorship. Within 2 months, she had a paid internship at a luxury brand, a wardrobe upgrade gifted by an anonymous donor, access to an apartment arranged through hotel friends. She was never touched, never propositioned, but the understanding was clear. You don't ask too many questions, she said. You show up. You smile. You play the part. And then came the quote that stopped hearts cold. There was another girl around that time. Prettier. Actress type. Mixed race. Always with John. She didn't say much. But when she did, everyone listened. People said, that one's being groomed for something bigger. Was it Meghan? Claire never confirmed. But the description matches. The timeline matches. The setting matches. And if it was, then we're not just talking about mentorship. We're talking about curation. The intentional shaping of a public figure before the public ever saw her. And what about the emotional toll? Because here's where the story gets painfully human. Imagine being Meghan. Smart, ambitious, hyper-aware of how the world sees you. Imagine knowing that people are already judging your skin tone, your background, your Hollywood past. Now imagine trying to rebrand yourself as the future of modern royalty, with this history following behind you. Wouldn't you want to erase it? Wouldn't you scrub the guest lists? The aliases? The dinner photos? Wouldn't you tell your publicist, this version of me never existed? The irony is tragic, because the very system that may have helped Meghan rise is the one she can never acknowledge without destroying everything she built afterward. And the people who remember that system, they're starting to speak, because time erodes loyalty, especially when those who once felt powerful now feel forgotten. One former concierge put it simply. When she made it, she stopped calling. Didn't even send a Christmas card. We weren't offended, just surprised. She was always so polite, but it was like she vanished. Like we were a chapter she'd rather not reread. And maybe that's true. Maybe Meghan doesn't want to reread that chapter. But we're reading it now. And the next page? It features a detail so small, so overlooked, yet so damning, that it could unravel the entire narrative. A single LinkedIn bio. Every polished story hides the edits. Every public figure scrubs, rewrites, refines, but few do it as thoroughly and as quietly as Meghan Markle. Because behind every glowing cover shoot and every carefully chosen quote about resilience and self-made success, there's something missing. A digital trail, a timeline, the ordinary footprints that every rising star leaves behind. And when those footprints are missing, that's when you start asking why. This chapter isn't about rumors. It isn't even about quotes or anecdotes. It's about receipts, or rather, the stunning absence of them. Let's start with something seemingly mundane. A LinkedIn profile. Before Meghan was a royal, she was just another millennial actress navigating the audition circuit. Like thousands of others, she reportedly had a LinkedIn. It listed her college education, Northwestern, her internships, and several brand collaborations. Nothing scandalous. But then, somewhere around 2014, it vanished. And not just the profile. Posts referencing it were deleted. Screenshots disappeared. Blogs that had embedded her page suddenly showed broken links. One SEO archivist noticed something odd. There was a purge. Someone ran a cleanup script. Around the same time her stars started rising on Suits, a lot of pre-fame data disappeared from Google's index. Now, celebrities do this all the time. Old posts, embarrassing headshots, outdated bios. It's part of the image refresh. But Meghan's digital erasure wasn't just thorough, it was strategic. Let's walk through what went missing. 1. The blog comments. Before the TIG, Meghan commented frequently on other lifestyle blogs under the name Meghan M or Meghan from Cali. She offered wine recommendations. She praised incredible Irish hospitality after a luxury hotel stay in NYC. She thanked a hotel manager named JF for treating me like royalty even when I was a nobody. That comment was once cached by a fan blog. It's gone now. 2. The guest lists. Several charity events from 2011 to 2013